Hey guys, let's talk about the most loved trucking manufacturer of all time. I'm talking about Peterbilt. Let's also talk about the model that they only made 2 of. Well guys, I'm sure I'll get a lot of slack for saying this, but I'm actually going by what I read. And it does say that Peterbilt is the most loved truck of all time. I don't know what that's based on. I know I'm going to have Kenworth guys come back and be like, no, Kenworth is the best truck of all time. I didn't say it's the best truck of all time. I think it's the best truck of all time, but that's my opinion. I'm also a Kenworth lover too. So remember, I own a Kenworth. My favorite truck of all time is probably the Superliner Max. So, you know, I'm all over the place, but I love trucks as a whole, but it was just time to do the video of, you know, probably the #1 manufacturer of trucks of all time. They're still a super loved brand, and I think everybody's going to love to hear the story of it. So they have a lot of different models or sizes. They have, you know, class 6, class 5, or, you know, medium duty. I am for the most part going to stick with class 8. That's what most of my viewers want to see. I might mention some things about some other classes, but yeah, that's pretty much what I'm going to stick with. So in 1939, Theodore Alfred Peterman, apparently he went by Al, or T.A. Peterman as he's listed on most things, was in the lumber industry, and he wanted to modernize the way transportation logs went. What's really funny about that is, if you watched my Fruhoff video, that kind of got started in the exact same way. But in 1934, Peterman acquired 30,000 acres in Morton, Washington. And he didn't want to use railroads anymore. He built roads, and he started buying trucks. He actually purchased a whole bunch of trucks from White Motor Company, and they were surplus Army trucks. And then he started modernizing them, changing them around, making them better for hauling logs. So I realized I hadn't checked my pronunciation on this next one, so I wanted to go and do that quick, but I got it now. So in 1938, Al Peterman was on a business trip to San Francisco, and he learned that Fagel Truck and Motor Company was going to be sold. The company was failing pretty bad, and he was seeking an opportunity to expand into new vehicle production. And he acquired Fagel from Sterling Motor Company for $50,000. And he also got a 13.5 acre plant in Oakland, California. Yeah, it says tooling, parts inventory, and the purchase was complete in 1939. Fagel is spelled F-A-G-E-O-L. That's why I wasn't sure. I just wanted to make sure that I had the pronunciation right, and I checked a few sources on here that said that is right. Yeah, so in 1939, he reopened the plant as Peterbilt Motor Company. And so he actually, right from the start, was seeking information from truck drivers. That's what he did. He wanted to build a truck for truck drivers, and he was planning on using trucks for logging, or building logging trucks and doing chain-driven trucks. But he ended up with 2 models in 1939. The 260, which was a chain drive, and the 334, which was a shaft drive. And you could get diesel or gas engines in either one of them. Now, right from the beginning, the 2 and 3 meant 2 axles or 3 axles. So up until, I don't know what year it was, I'll get to that here in the end when they ended doing that, but they would do pretty much the same model, but they would do it in a 2 and 3 based on how many axles were going to be under it. So the 334 they made 2 of, and let me see here. Okay, it says that they actually made 16 vehicles in 1939. The very first one was a fire truck for what is now Fremont, California. It was Centerville at the time, in California. In 1940, they built 83 trucks. That's pretty impressive. But during this time, they were still refurbishing old trucks from other manufacturers into logging trucks that basically supplemented their income and allowed them, you know, to keep growing. In 1941, now remember, now we're talking about 1941. Any manufacturer I do, any trucking company I talk to, the World War II was a huge part of it. And they created the Model 364 for the logging industry specifically. But they ended up repurposing it for military use for World War II. They also produced the first cab-over engine truck. It says it was derived from the 260. And it said the vehicle was a half cab design with a full deck chassis. I actually couldn't find any pictures of this. I did find the next cab over, but yeah. So in 1944, they got a contract with the military to supply 224 trucks. And later on that year, in November, T.A. Peterman died. Lost his battle with cancer. He was only 51 years old. And yeah, what a shame. He ended up leaving the company to his wife. In 1945, the war was over, or you know, they were starting to do more civilian vehicles. And this is when Peterbilt introduced aluminum-built cabs. Everything was steel cabs up until then. And as we know today, you know, it's still aluminum. Well, yeah. In 1947, Ida Peterman, T.A. Peterman's wife, sold the company to a group of managers and some investors for $450,000. Isn't that crazy? He bought it for $50,000, turned it into what it was, sold it years later. And not only that, she kept the real estate. So she sold the company, but she owned the real estate. And yeah, wow. In 1949, the company now went to a second generation of trucks, and this was the 280 and the 350. Pretty much the same truck, but again, 2 axles, 3 axles. They called it the iron nose conventional, and it, you know, they were narrow. We still call them narrow hoods, you know, when we see them out there, or you know, at the truck shows or anything. And they also, for the first time, were now mass producing cab over trucks with what they called the bubble nose. So it was basically the bubble nose 380 and 350, or 280 and 350, which is the same as the conventionals, but they had the cab over. At that time, they weren't using different names for them. And so here's something interesting. In 1953, Peterbilt started using the round or the oval red emblem. Before that, they used, you'll see it here, the square, or the square said Peterbilt in it. And I always wonder, though, the way Peterbilt is written in the emblem almost looks like, I wonder if that was actually T.A. Peterman's signature. I'll go see if I can find that out. Well, I couldn't find anything out about that at all. So we'll just carry on here. In 1954, the 280 and the 350, pretty much same truck, just axles. They underwent a redesign called the 281 and the 351. Probably one of the coolest Peterbilts of all time, the 351. Narrow nose conventional. They redesigned the grille and made the grille shutters horizontal. And let me see, they also introduced a new cab over, the 281, 351 cab over. Larger, wider, and it pretty much was a whole different design, basically, that they carried on through the years, just improving on it. In 1958, Ida Peterman, who, remember, she still owned the real estate, didn't own the company anymore, she decided to redevelop the factory site as a shopping center. And at that point, the investors, the people that owned the company, decided to sell it to Pacific Car and Foundry. Pacific Car and Foundry was based in Seattle, and they produced railroad freight cars. Yeah. But they already owned Kenworth. They had bought Kenworth in 1944. I'm not sure why. I guess they wanted to, you know, move ahead for the future. Maybe they thought trucks were the future and railroad wasn't. They also, because they had to move, started building a 176,000 square foot facility in Newark, California. So in 1959, the cab over 281 and 351 was replaced by the 282 and the 352. They looked similar on the outside. They did add the 4 headlights, which was a huge improvement over it. But this was actually the first time that it had a tilt cab. The other ones didn't have a tilt cab. I don't know how you got in there to work on them. Would you just, I don't know, lay on the engine and try to work on it? I have no clue. But the tilt hood, of course, gave you better access to the engine. In 1960, the Newark, California assembly plant opened, and they actually increased their production to 800 vehicles were made in 1960. They also redesigned, and they had a new cab called the Unilight for its conventional trucks. It was supposed to be lighter. It had bigger windows. Yeah, new instrument panel, everything. So in 1965, Peterbilt introduced the Model 358. It did replace the 351, but the 351 remained in production. And this was the first time ever that Peterbilt had a conventional truck with a tilting hood. So what you don't realize before is that the last models had the lift hood, you know, the accordion hood you lift up on the side, but the grill was the radiator. It was all fixed. It was all stayed in one place. Now they had a radiator separate, and the whole hood tilted front. And yeah, that's pretty interesting. I didn't realize that went on until that late. So at the same time, because they did this is when they had to have a hood ornament, because now you had to pull the hood, just like we do now with all trucks pretty much. But and that is where the bird hood ornament came in. They call it the Peterbilt bird hood ornament, and they still use it today, the exact same. I actually don't have any Peterbilts around me, and I have an aftermarket hood ornament here, but yeah, they still use it today on all their models. Yeah, so 1966, they decided to get into heavy duty trucks or off-road trucks, more construction stuff, 6x6 trucks, and they came out with the Model 383. So 1967, Peterbilt introduced the 359, similar to the 358, 289, 359. They all used tilting hoods, but it had a larger grille. And part of the reason they had to go to a larger grille is because diesel engines were now getting bigger at this point, and they needed more cooling power. So they basically had to widen it so they could put bigger radiators in. And yeah, that's pretty interesting, because now you look at manufacturers, it seems like they're going back to more narrow hoods. And I've often wondered, especially with the Peterbilt and Kenworth now, the 680 Kenworth and the 589, 579, whatever Peterbilt, they went to that narrow design, but the technology has changed so much over the years. Yeah, so in 1969, Peterbilt opened a facility in Madison, Tennessee, which is outside Nashville. And yeah, this was basically made to handle the East Coast. And I always thought it was just something that truck drivers called it, but I didn't realize that Peterbilt actually named the 352 cab over the Pacemaker. I didn't know that was actually named like that by Peterbilt. So in 1973, they actually doubled the production in their Madison, Tennessee facility, and this now allowed the company to make 8,000 vehicles a year. It also says in 1974 they added a setback front axle to the 359. I don't know, I guess that made it the shorter hood. Yeah, I'm not sure. In 1975 they opened a facility in Canada. I'm not going to even try to say its name. It's in Quebec. It's very French, but it does say it's outside of Montreal. And here they started the production. This is where they were doing the CB300, which is sold by Kenworth also. They called it the Hustler. And these were pretty much trash trucks. You know, used for the refuge business. Yeah, so they had the 352. Yeah, they changed the 352 a bit to cab over to allow bigger engines. They called it the 352H, high mounted cab. So interesting. So now they were making 359s and still making 351s, and after 22 years they decided in 1976 to end the 351. It was replaced by the 358 and the 359, as we know. We've had forever. Let's see here, narrow hood. Yeah, the narrow hood was retired at that point. That was the end of, so 1976 was the last year for the narrow hoods. And here it says, you know, the 359 was better suited for the cooling needs of the newer diesel engines, as I'm sure you can imagine. In 1977, Peterbilt had its 100,000th vehicle. It was a 359. It was a long hood 359. And now we got some little trucks here. Not much happened except in the little truck business. Now, I mentioned before, there was a truck that they only made 2 of. And that was the model 397. This thing is a monster. It was made exclusively for off-road use. The thing is huge. They actually only ever sold 2 of them, one in 1980 and one in 1982, and it doesn't say who bought them. But I have 2 different pictures of them, so that must mean I have pictures of both of them. This was also the year that they opened their manufacturer or their facility in Denton, Texas, which is, you know, Dallas-Fort Worth suburb. And yeah, 80 acres, 435,000 square feet assembly facility. All right, so in 1981, this was another big year for Peterbilt. The Madison facility in Tennessee is where they started making the 362 cab over. This replaced the 352H, and before that the 352. And it was a completely new design of any cab over that Peterbilt had done. Yeah, it says in 22 years. It had a curved 3-piece windshield, 3 windshield wipers. There were some other designs. I don't know if any of you guys, I'm sure some of you like FSC Trucking. I believe his channel is just FSC Trucking. He still runs one of these old 362 Peterbilts. Definitely an old Keen truck. He does heavy haul with it and RGN, all kinds of different work with it. So definitely a cool channel to check out. So in 1986, Peterbilt decided to close its Newark, California. Sorry, the guy beside me just decided to start his truck up. Give me a couple seconds here. I don't know if you could hear that or what could be picked up, but I had the window rolled down. And yes, where am I? Yeah, they closed their Newark, California, and moved everything to Denton, Texas. Imagine that. Even in the 1980s, people were leaving California to go to Texas. Sounds a lot like Tesla, doesn't it? That's a whole nother subject. I don't get into the politics of it all, but yeah. And actually in 1986, it was the first time that Peterbilt started selling raised roof sleepers, and apparently they were way behind way behind on this, and they offered in their 359s. So in 1987, Peterbilt introduced two different trucks. The 377, something I'm not a big fan of, but we'll show it to you here, and the 379, which, by the way, is listed as one of the most iconic trucks ever. You know, if you actually look up most iconic trucks ever, it says that the 379 Peterbilt is the most iconic Class 8 truck ever. I'm not just saying it because I own one. Remember, I also own a Kenworth. It's for sale, by the way. Feel free to reach out to me if you want to buy a Kenworth. But at the same time, the 377 was keeping up with sister company Kenworth, who had just released the T600. Now, the T600, if you remember, that was a super aerodynamic truck. That truck was so far ahead of its time. It looked good. It just, yeah. To me, the 377 was no competition for the T600 at all. But the 377 did use a sloped hood. It was sloped more than any of their other Class 8 versions, and it had a setback front axle, wraparound front bumper, and the lights were integrated in the fenders, which is something I absolutely hated on these trucks. Yeah, so the only problem with the 379 coming out is that was the end of the 359. They ended it at the same times. A lot of times they had carried it over, you know, like they carried over the 351 while they were still making the 359, you know, for a couple years. But yeah, there's a couple things here about, yeah, anyway. Here's something we have to talk about. Look, I love the 370. I think Peterbilt makes great trucks, but they have had some really ugly trucks. We talked about the 377, which I didn't really care for, but in 1988, Peterbilt introduced a Class 8 cabover, the 372 Aerodynamic cabover. Yeah. Let me look here to see what it actually says. It had a 3-piece windshield. Oh, no, it replaced the 3-piece windshield with a pointed windshield. So the roof fairing, or the wind scoop or whatever, actually extended past the truck. You're looking at pictures here. It was, in my opinion, the ugliest truck that was ever made. That is my opinion. So not only does Peterbilt make beautiful trucks, they, in my opinion, did make the ugliest truck ever. Yeah, let me see here what else it said. Oh, it didn't use a setback front axle, but it did. So it looks like a setback front axle because they actually extended the front to make it so aerodynamic, even though it's a cab over. And they said they were actually getting 11 miles per gallon in testing. Part of its problem is that it was so ridiculously ugly. You know, York, Pennsylvania is pretty close to my house, and there's a big Harley Davidson there. And Harley Davidson had bought a whole bunch of these. I mean, that was funny because Harley Davidson has beautiful trucks, you know, no matter what they're pulling. I mean, they're black, they got, you know, orange stripes, got the Harley logo. I mean, it's hard not to look cool when your truck looks like that. But man, these guys managed. It was horrible. Actually, I'll tell you in a bit here when they stopped production of that, but I'm surprised it went on as long as it did. Yeah, 1993, all operations in Newark, California ended, and we're all moved to Denton for the most part. They also expanded in Denton. So yeah, so in 1996 they closed Peterbilt Canada, the one that was in the Montreal area, but they actually they leveled it and did rebuild it later. Apparently they had a lot of strikes there and other things. It was just didn't work out very good there, but they did demolish the facility the next year and opened a new facility in 1999. They also introduced the 385 Peterbilt, which was just a little bit shorter than the 377, just as ugly in my opinion. There we go. So in 1999, I was surprised this came out in 1999. I didn't know that, but in 1999 the Model 387 was introduced, and that was actually the successor to the 377, and in my opinion a lot better, just a lot nicer looking of a truck. That's again, these are all my opinions. It actually shares the cab that the Kenworth T2000 has, and that's a truck that I don't really like. I never really cared for them at all. But the 387 I just think is, you know, a really nice looking truck. You know, they were used for years, and yeah, just pretty nice. It actually says here that in 2000 they did end the 377, but they did still have the 385. Yeah, it said it was replaced. Yeah, they ended the 377, but they kept the 385 and then had the 387. Yeah, it just says, you know, they increased production in Canada in 2002 because they obviously had the newer facility there. So here's a sad year, and it sucks because it's a year, well, actually my truck's a 2006, but most things in there are 2005 year. But in 2005 the Model 362 entered production. Obviously Peterbilt is a mostly North American company. I haven't even seen anything about sales that they have in other countries, and cab overs just had pretty much gone under. At that time the only cab over left was the Freightliner Argosy, which we know really wasn't all that great of a truck. I don't know if they still make it. I don't think they do. Yeah, just, you know, that's all they had left. Also in 2005 Peterbilt changed their cab designs a little bit. Now, like I said, mine's a 2006. 2006, a lot of things inside are 2005, but one thing they did was they got rid of vent windows. You know, I don't know how well you can see at nighttime here, but I do not have vent windows. And let me turn on the key here and roll down the window. The other thing they got rid of is 379s always had, the mirrors were here on the door, here and here, and the mirrors stuck out from the door. So what they changed at that point was where my mirrors are on the fender. So you see, you know, I open the door, it doesn't move. Actually, it was kind of nice on the older 379s because you could back in, you could actually, you know, adjust your mirror that way. But yeah, anyway, I'll hang it back up here. Roll this window back up. By the way, my window works really slow in this. I should just put a new motor in one of these days, but I haven't. Anyway, there we go. Everything's off. So, lost where I was because I was showing you guys all this. But yeah, relocated for the side window. Yeah, all that. So now here's a more direct replacement. So they said that the 387 was the replacement for the 377, but the 387 was a whole different truck than the 377. In 2005 they came out with the 386. Now 386 is another truck I really love. It does not take much to make a 386 look nice. You know, bumper, visor. Man, it's just a great looking truck. I love the 386. I love the 387s. Yeah, so basically at that time they got rid of the I believe they got rid of the 385 at that point, but it doesn't say here. So there is some things here about some of the smaller trucks, but like I said, I'm not too interested in you know, not too interested in those. Let's get down here. 2007. All right, you know what? I'm going to go back a bit because I wanted to talk about a couple of special edition trucks because I actually have one. Mine is the 379X, not to be mistaken for the 379EXHD, which is extended hood. Now mine is an extended hood, but the 379X was a truck that was basically just made totally owner operated spec. They loaded it up. It's got polished front fenders. It's got it came with straight pipes, although they're not true straight pipes. It does have a muffler underneath, kind of like Kenworths have. Some other things like my trim inside is all brushed aluminum. My seats, well, this seat is aftermarket now. I actually have the original seat for this, which was reupholstered and everything, sitting in my basement. I probably would have put it in here, but it's really not that comfortable, not compared to this, you know, this Pinnacle seat here. My passenger seat does say 379X on it, except I got the, you know, the thing hanging over the back of the seat right now. But I wanted to get into that. They did that. They made the 379X in 2004, 2005, and then they made a few in 2006. This is a 2006. Apparently they were supposed to end it in 2005, but they still had parts left over. So they decided to do some more. And that's why I say I actually have a 2005 interior in this, because they did change the interior in 2006. For instance, the radio overhead went down into the dash, some other things. So like if I order interior stuff for this, I order it for an 80 or for an 05, not an 06. But I wanted to talk about that because in 07, this is when the company retired to 379 and went to the 389. But the last 1,000 379s were the Legacy Edition. See, now people think, I've had many people say, you know, what number is your truck? Because they think that the 379X was numbered, and it wasn't numbered. In fact, I've been told they made about 2,000 of them, but they don't have exact count. They know that in 2007, they made the last 1,000 379s were called the Legacy Edition, and they were numbered with plaques on the dash. There was a couple things different. I don't think they had as much flashy stuff as the 379X, but it was a collector's edition, and you know, every one of them said the number on it. In fact, one of these pictures I'm showing here, the red one, was the very last one ever made. Yeah, so that was end of an era. Now the 389s came out. I never loved this. I didn't love the 389s at the beginning. You know, that's one truck that grew on me. Still don't like the headlights. I think if I had a 389, I think I would have to change the headlights on it. But other than that, you know, it's you know, pretty much always been a good truck. You know, people I know that have it, they really love it. In 2009, Peterbilt actually, for the first time ever, came out with PACCAR engines. And it says here that it's Cummins built, but the way I understood, I thought they were, yeah, I didn't know they were built by Cummins. I'm sorry, but anyway, at that point they were using them in their smaller versions. All right, so in 2010, for the first time ever, Peterbilt came out with a truck and used a 5 in the number. It was the first time ever, and you might think it's the 579, but it's not. It was the 587. So I don't really know why they made a 587. It's pretty much a 578 but had a little bit different headlight configuration. I mean, they're okay. I thought the 387s were a little bit nicer. It also says that it shared the same cab and everything as the Kenworth T700, which I think that came out for 1 year. I thought 2010 was the only year for that. It wasn't very popular. It was very wide. I know it had a nice interior. It had like a real nice cockpit design around it, but on the outside I didn't really like them, you know, and they were quickly replaced. Well, they had the 660 and 680 and everything, you know, a sleeker design. Yeah, let me see here. Sorry here. So now in 2012, that is when the Model 579 came out, and that was a wide cab aerodynamic tractor. It did replace the 587, but they kept making the 587 after that for reasons that I don't quite know. Yeah, basically the 579 was supposed to be like the top of the line truck with the 389, you know, the long hood. Basically they're saying like you got top of the line equipment in either one of them. So yeah, so the 579 actually did not, it says it does not share a cab design with Kenworth. I would have thought that the 579 shared the T680. I always get the 660 and the 680 confused, although I know the difference. But I would have always thought that they shared the cab design, but I guess they don't. Yeah, that's crazy. Here's another truck I really like. In 2013, the Model 567 came out. It's a Class 8 heavy-duty truck. So this has a sloped hood, but if you don't want to do the traditional the 579, you want something a little bit more traditional, but you still want a shorter wheelbase. 567 is a nice truck, and this is actually another truck that I say it does not take much to make it look real nice. I think it's pretty stylish. You know, I'm not a guy that says all trucks have long hoods on them. Different applications for different things. I pretty much like most trucks. So yeah, it had a setback front axle, and but it didn't totally look like it had a setback front axle because the way the hood was shaped and everything else. I just like them. I do really like them. I got some friends that have them, and they just, yeah, they're nice trucks. Yeah, so actually in 2014, Peterbilt released a 75th anniversary Model 579. Painted two-tone exterior, matching interior. What's interesting about that is I always wonder where they came up with that paint job for it, until you look at the very first Peterbilt ever made. That's pretty much where they came up with it. Yeah, so yeah, we got all those more small trucks here, and yeah, they talk about the 388, which is just a little bit shorter 389. You know, they've been doing that forever. In 2018, Peterbilt began testing electric vehicle prototypes. They have 12 579s and 3 520s, which are, oh yeah, the 520s are basically still their trash truck line, which, as you probably know, you know, a lot of trash trucks you see out there have the Peterbilt emblem on it because they've been running them for a long time. It actually says here in 2021, Peterbilt Peterbilt started making electronic vehicles again, launched a Class 8 579 EV tractor, Class 8 520 EV low cab, COE, yeah. Anyway, I don't follow that too much. We'll figure it out here, you know, eventually. All right, so here's some controversy that's been around. In 2023, Peterbilt introduced the Model 589. It's the redesign of the 389. It's got a more sloped windshield. It's a lot different. It looks a lot the same, except for that sloped windshield, which is kind of weird. It says it's on the same chassis as the 389, but the cab and the sleeper are different. In fact, I believe, I haven't seen it yet, but I believe the 589 interior is the same as the 579 interior. But, you know, just the way government, you know, restrictions are going, these companies have to, I mean, Peterbilt can't continue, they just can't continue to make brick walls going down the road, because they need to meet certain standards in North America, and I guess this was supposed to lean that way. Overall, as of now, if I was to buy a brand new Peterbilt right now, I'm pretty sure it would either be a 567 or the new 579 with an ultra loft. I don't think it would be the new 589, and that's just because, first of all, I really love the new 579s. I think they are beautiful. They got that 80-inch ultra loft sleeper, man. Yeah. So there we have it. That's where we're at today. Yeah, this one was a lot of fun. You know, I have fun with all of them. You know, we'll work on some other manufacturers in the future. Because I know the Kenworth guys are all going to be up in arms because I called Peterbilt the most famous, or the most loved truck ever. I will do Kenworth here pretty soon. By the way, here's something interesting when that does come. I would have thought Peterbilt was the first company. Kenworth was actually around longer than Peterbilt. But yeah, I'll definitely do Kenworth in the future. I've been kind of switching up now where I'm doing, because I started doing some manufacturers, but I also do trucking companies, so I'm kind of switching them up, trying to rotate them, you know, keep people interesting. Sorry it took me so long to get this video out. You know, it's been a while. I think it's been a week and a half since I did an actual video like this. But if you did watch my last video of me, you see that I had a rough week. You know, rear went out on my truck, and got it fixed by a great shop in Macon, Georgia, called Henry's Truck Repair. Did a good job at what I thought was a well cheaper price than I thought it was going to be. So if you're ever in Macon, Georgia and need some work done, definitely look up Henry's Truck Repair. But hey guys, thanks as always. I hope the lighting was right in here, and sorry, you know, people were starting up trucks around me. I'm in Madisonville, Kentucky. Yeah, but hey, comment, like, subscribe. I always say I read everything. I usually respond to most everything. It may take me a little bit to get back, but yeah, I appreciate it, guys, and I hope you like this video. So I will catch you on the next one.